So, which team you on? You on Dwellings? You on Andromeda's Edge? You on both? What do you need to know? Which one is right for you? Which team do you find yourself leaning towards as Andromeda's Edge campaign runs to a close? Let's talk about this for a second. Make a few points, help you make a decision, and just go from there. Dwellings of Eldervale. Epic worker placement, fantasy, magical world, multiple factions, multiple tracks, worker placement in the form of dragons, wizards, treasure, engine building, and resource management. Andromeda's Edge. Heavy worker placement, epic spacefaring, ships sending out, resource gathering, modular, pull them all back in, gather your stuff up, and also battle. Now, similarities, you're both battling with dice. How you're battling with dice, though, is going to vary depending on what game you're looking at. Do you have a preference thematically? Do you have a preference in depth or heaviness or weight or length of play? Those right there, folks, are your biggest probably determiners at this point. I'd love to say that they're going to be drastically different games, right? No, they're not. There's going to be some similarity. There's going to be some overlap. But I look at it more like a Blood Rage Ankh Rising Sun rather than sort of like an El Grande Blood Rage, if you will, with those comparisons, where there is going to be some similarity. There is going to be some overlap. You can see just if you're reading through the rule books of both of them, the similarities of how you're putting your workers out there. And then when you pull your workers back in, you are activating them. You are putting them down on modulars. You're putting them down to gather resources at certain places. Like I mentioned, you have battles on both sides of things that are going to contain the use of dice. But how you use those dice, higher numbers matter. Higher numbers matter in a different way. In Andromeda's Edge, you're taking those dice and you are just literally lining up high to high, high to high, high to high. And if you have the highest one, then you win. And if you have a threshold that you go below when you roll a die, you get to re-roll it, so you have a better chance. So which more deterministic or open sort of freestyle flowing dice combat do you prefer? Do you prefer a game that's going to be 1 to 2 hours, or do you prefer a game that's going to be 2 to 3? That's going to give you more engine building, more build up, if you will, with the Andromeda's Edge, but also is going to have a higher overhead overall. Availability is sort of a wash with this game situation, right? Dwellings has still been hard to find. It's short on the market. They can't print it fast enough to get people saturated to not have the secondary costs be more than what people are paying when it is available. Andromeda's Edge is going to be available to everyone right now. Does that change things? How much deluxeification do you actually need? Those are the foods for thought that you need to think about, because the other thing both of these games have in spades is deluxeifications. Do you need any deluxeifications? The answer is no. Do you like deluxeifications? Well, yeah, you're going to be able to get them. Yeah, there's going to be an artificial scarcity at some point down the line if they continue with how they have printed their other games. Again, I'm not saying that as a positive or a negative. I'm just saying that as a matter of fact, which is why you're seeing a lot of people go all in on this one, because they saw the artificial scarcity that came around with the big time chunks between the printings of Dwellings of Eldervale. And so I think you're seeing more of that with that. But is that something that is going to cause you to get it if you can't get it, if you like it, in 6 months, 3 months, 2 years? Are you going to regret not having deluxeifications in terms of dice trays and that sort of thing? How you are tableau building in Andromeda's Edge, I almost called it Aeon Trespass Odyssey there, and how the advancement tracks operate are going to be different in each of the games. Andromeda's Edge, like I said, is going to be more complex. There's going to be more overhead. And so that is both a boon and a curse depending on how, much you like that in a game. This situation reminds me very much of a game sitting right here on the shelf back here, Nemesis Lockdown, of a Nemesis versus Nemesis Lockdown. Both excellent games, both very well thought of, but ultimately people have a preference of one versus the other because of the depth, the complexity, the intro, the overhead, and the time length. Does that sound like anything else I've already said in this video? Because it sure heck sounds a lot like something I just said. Based on what we know as well on the rulebook as well as the tabletop simulator for Andromeda's Edge, we know that this is, like I mentioned, not just longer, not just a little heavier. There's more Euro mechanism incorporation. The combo elements are definitely more there. The modularity is definitely more there. There are more ways to score victory points, especially end game scoring points, and on the tracks that are going to be more heavily utilized in this than Dwellings. how much of that strategic element do you want? Or are you looking for something a little bit lighter, a little bit more tactical in, say, a Dwellings? The bulk of the scoring, per reports, does come at the end game scoring conditions for Andromeda's Edge. So that's the other thing that is going to be a little bit different. How much do you prefer, okay, I'm playing the game, I can see where everyone's at, this is where things are at, and I'm being able to end the game, or I can see where people are getting close and I need to be able to wrap up and do my things very shortly? Or is it going to be, okay, the game ends and then everybody tries to figure out where they're at and you don't have a clue where everyone's at? And do you prefer that element of suspension as well? So, it's going to be a tough call. And again, as not having played both of them, I can't speak to direct head-to-head comparisons. So I can't tell you that, okay, if you like this, you're going to like that. But from all accounts online, both Discord, Board Game Geek, Reddit, as well as the campaign, people say that they are distinct enough, like I mentioned, where you could have Nemesis as well as Nemesis Lockdown in your collection. You could have that sort of element in there. But the question is not can you have it, but do you have the bandwidth to have both of them? That ultimately is, the end point. Now, one last point, as I'll say, in terms of deluxifications, I wish there was a pledge level that was just gameplay content. They have the regular, they have the deluxe, they have the all-in. The deluxe is, well, it just adds deluxe a bunch of stuff. The all-in adds a few gameplay elements and it adds an all-in. And it's going to save you money, if you will. But if you want just gameplay, they don't have either of those pledge levels. And so I really wish there was a pledge level just for that, to say, okay, this is what you're going to get. This is what you need if you want just that, period. That's it, short and sweet. Take it for what you will. So, knowing what you know, even just superficial glances. Team Fantasy, Team Sci-Fi, Dwellings of Eldervale, Andromeda's Edge. Where do you fall? Which one would you rather spend your money on? All things being equal, all things considered. Which one do you fall in? I don't know yet, but you know what? I'm going to dabble my toe in a little bit of both. So if you're like me, don't be like me, but do you. Stay classy. See you around.